just because you're afraid of something doesn't mean you can't do it. You know,
Right.
you're going to definitely be more nervous doing that than other things. But I've I won't go into like beating my chest saying best SEAL out there by any means, but I've been in a lot of firefights with the enemy, and during those firefights, I don't think my heart rate ever rose above 80 beats per minute or something like that. It wasn't. It's kind of like I'm just doing my job, and yes, I know bullets are flying by me, and I'm trading there, but for that, very calm and collective.
Hey, everybody. This is Paul Critchley, president of New England Lean Consulting, and welcome to the New England Lean podcast. I'm extremely honored this week to bring you Brian Carney as our guest. Brian's a local guy. He lives in Western Massachusetts, which isn't far from where we are. Brian also happens to be a former Navy SEAL, which is why I had reached out to him to see if he'd be interested in joining us here on the podcast. Brian served for almost 13 years. He was Special Operations Chief of SEAL Team 2. He left in 2013 and became CEO. He started and founded Bonefrog, which is an obstacle course race that I've run. And so if you know me in real life, you follow us on social media, or if you watch this podcast on YouTube, for that matter, you'll have seen the medals that I've earned by running obstacle course races in the background. And that's really where I get to know Brian. I've run Bonefrog, I think 3 or 4 times now over the years. The original race was in Charlemont, Mass, which again isn't far. And they've expanded since then. So we talk about his leadership lessons, obviously, that you learn as you become and get trained to be a Navy SEAL. So to that end, we talk about trust and respect, how that plays into leadership. We talk about attachment and letting go, which I really liked because he made the point that that's actually part of becoming a SEAL. And also, as you get assigned to a team, you don't stay in any one SEAL team for your whole career. They purposely mix it up because, again, it's that whole mentality of being able to deal with change and how to manage it, how to get through it, which I think has a lot of correlations to business. We have people who we hire, we fire, they quit, they move on. Businesses change, businesses pivot. We're all still within COVID-19 and we have a lot of clients, and then our business as well, who have had to do different things. So it's all about how to manage change, how to adapt to it, how to deal with it, how to overcome it. So a lot of really amazing leadership lessons in there. And of course, he harkens back to some of the things he learned as he was being trained and then operating as a Navy SEAL. He has a quote that you'll hear in the episode that I absolutely love, and it's this: "No plan ever survives its first contact with the enemy." And I like that because, as an engineer, we throw around the term analysis paralysis a fair bit. And, I hear managers use that a lot to say, well, we can't get, wrapped around the axle and overanalyze all these things. And that's true. And Brian even talks about that, where, they'll plan things out to the nth degree, but, once you're in it, things change. And I think that's true in leadership organizations as well. We don't always know what the outcomes are going to be. That's where I get back to, PDCA, where, let's just try it. Let's come up with an idea and just try and see how it goes. Now, thankfully, we're not dealing in life and death situations like Brian and his teams were. But still, it can be a significant emotional event for some people, as we've all seen in dealing with change and trying to implement it, enact it, and practice it. So one minor note, this episode, this interview chat is going to be broken into 2 episodes. So this week is part 1. It was a very lengthy talk that I had with Brian. I don't get the chance to talk with Navy SEALs and hang out with them a lot, so I took full advantage. So it did go a little long, so I'm going to break it into 2 episodes. So part 1 will be this week, and part 2 will be next week. But I hope you enjoy it. And as always, like and subscribe if you feel so inclined. And I hope you enjoy it. And have a great week, everybody. See you soon. Welcome to the New England Lean podcast. My guest today, as I mentioned, is Mr. Brian Carney. Sir, how are you?
Good. How you doing? Thanks for having me on. Of
Yeah, thanks for being here. First things first, thank you for your service.
course. Appreciate it.
I mean, I don't get to hang out with Navy SEALs all the time. So this is like, this is pretty cool.
Oh, absolutely.
You're any room you walk into, you're the toughest guy, right? I'm not even the toughest guy on my cul-de-sac. So I'm like,
there's always someone tougher, right?
well, for me, yes. I mean, for you, I don't know. I mean, I got to believe if I don't know, your kids are a little young, but you mentioned that one's going into kindergarten. So
right.
I got to believe that if you're on the parent teacher association or whatever, you're going to sell the most cookies or whatever, right? Who's going to argue with you?
We're not there yet, but yeah, down the line, I'm already looking forward to it.
So cool. So thanks again, Brian, for being with us. So like I mentioned, I mean, you're a retired Navy SEAL. I think you mentioned you were in for about 13 years.
Yeah. So former Navy SEAL, you got to do 20 years to retire.
Okay. Former. Got it. Cause I can't say X, right? That's like grounds for a smackdown.
Yeah. Well, I mean, X is more of a term that you'd use for someone that was, either kicked out of the military or something like that, or left dishonorably. So
gotcha.
We'll use that, but anyone that leaves, anything less than 20 years is former.
Gotcha. Thank you. You're also the CEO of Bonefrog, which is an obstacle course race that, hey, I run. It's one of my favorite. It's probably my favorite here. And you can see like, these are all the ones I run. So right. You're in there. Trust me. I think you're right here and somewhere in here.
Yep.
So
awesome.
So that's odd. So, I mean, it's a natural, I don't say natural, but anybody who's a military supporter or even is interested knows about BUDS, right? Which is right. Basic Underwater, Demolition School. There's been numerous books written, like Jocko Willenick has his podcast. So thank you for not talking like this, the whole time, which if you know Jocko, please tell him I'm not making fun of him because
right. No, I got you.
Listen, I'm 5'10", $170, so it's I can't hang. But so I wanted to jump right in and just kind of say, how did you wind up becoming a SEAL in the first place?
Yeah, I've been asked this question a few times, and I don't 100% know like when exactly I started going down that path. I know I was young, but what I meant by that is I don't know if it was like a book or a movie or, mind you, this is going to be relative early 90s or so time frame. And at that time, there really wasn't many movies out there about SEALs. There wasn't books. There wasn't the internet that we have now for easy search. But regardless, I kind of got the itch for it. And at the time, the only thing I could do is ask my parents to drive me to a bookstore or something like that and start looking for books. And the only books at that time were books of Vietnam and things like that. But it just started furthering, what I wanted to do. I was really excited for it. I knew that, this is something that I'm extremely passionate about. So I just started doing all my research, getting as much information I possibly could on it all. And I think I told, my first friend or family member that I want to be a SEAL, and it was kind of almost laughable. Like no one knew a SEAL. I think there's more. I would say there's more of them out there now, but because there's been more going on with the wars and stuff like that, it's a little more known. But everyone was like, "Nah, I've never met a SEAL, but my picture of one is, 300 pounds of muscle that, kill you just by looking at you type thing." So it just seemed far-fetched, but more I kind of pushed for it and whatnot, just kind of made it happen.
Now, do you think so you've obviously, you've been through all that, you've been through the training and you were active duty. So, and you're right. I think, average folks think Navy SEAL, they think, right. I mean, there's been plenty of movies. So they think 6'4", 275,
Right.
shoulders like this, waist like this,
Right.
big guns, the whole thing. Is that prototypical or?
No, not really. I mean, I'm 6'2", and when I showed up to Buds, um, I was one of the biggest guys in the class, height wise and whatnot. And then there was guys taller than me and everything, but when I graduated Buds, and we had 242 guys that started, and we graduated 18 original guys. And then when I got to my SEAL team, it became very apparent that most SEALs are, well, I wouldn't say short, but a lot shorter type guys. I mean, they're not even, I would say most guys are almost less than 6 feet. So I'm not saying anything that they're small guys, but again, in that stigma that these guys, SEALs are all massive bodybuilders type things, like, nope, that's not the case at all.
Yeah. And that, because again, and I know, far be it from me to think that Hollywood movies represent any kind of reality, but that's right. That's what we see. So, and then you see, documentaries about Buds, and you see, and that's typically what they'll show. I mean, obviously you have to be in really good physical shape. Like I read up, I'm a big supporter of military. I've had a lot of family, some of my best friends, Marines. So you have to have like a certain level of physical, obviously. Right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, Buds is absolutely incredibly physical. They say it's the hardest training there is. I haven't done all the other trainings, so I can't, say one way or the other, but it's definitely incredibly grueling. But one of the things I'd say about SEAL training is, as long as, you're not going to have a heart attack and you're not going to, die from doing that kind of stuff, almost anyone out there can do one day of SEAL training of Buds. It's going to be grueling. It's going to be probably the hardest thing you ever did, but literally everyone can do one day. There's no question. The hard part about Buds is that it's day after day after day. When you do that first day, you're up at about 3 a.m. And it's right into it. It's, just work out the entire day. The most grueling thing you've done in that day ends somewhere around 8, 9 p.m. And as soon as you stop kind of running and moving, you start feeling all the aches and pains, and you just have to, you have to like pass out because you're so tired. So you're going to bed as soon as you possibly can, and then your alarm's going off at 2:50 a.m. And then when you wake up, you're like, oh my God, I feel like I've been in a car crash.
Yeah.
And you have to do it again, and then you do the next day. But there's a saying in Buds that everyone wants to be a SEAL on a Friday. Meaning like the training is only Monday through Friday. There is no training on the weekends. And when the training is over for the week, everyone's like, of course, like no one's going to quit Friday afternoon. Right. But when you have to start back up Monday morning, all of a sudden you get, 10, 15 guys like, nope, I can't, I'm not doing that all again. And just, I have a whole week ahead of me type thing.
Yep.
And it goes on for, Buds itself is 9 months alone, but the whole pipeline to go from joining the military to becoming showing up to your SEAL team is closer to 2.5 years. And it's just like, and then once you show up to a SEAL team, then it really gets hard.
Yeah.
So it's that, and Buds is a mind game. People say that it's 10% physical and 90% mental, and now that I've been through it type thing, I'd say that's very accurate. You do have to be extremely physical, in good shape, because otherwise, your body's just going to break down, and whether you're not going to have a choice, because you're mentally could keep going, but your body's going to break. Mm-hmm. So that's why they say it's physical, but the mind games are just constant all day, every day. And they're trying, Buds is really a selection process. The main goal of Buds is not to turn you into a SEAL. They really don't, towards the end of training, they teach you some, good stuff, but especially the first half of training, I'd say the majority of it is only to weed guys out. And that's the whole purpose of that. Mm-hmm. They're not teaching you to kill people. They're not teaching you to be a good, shooter. They're not teaching you demolition. It's just to get rid of guys. And these guys, the instructors are professionals at it. So they know they can smell when someone's about to break. They can weed out guys that are even just potentially broaching the idea of quitting, and then they just go after them type thing until they do. So that's where it's like if you can mentally figure it out, get through it, have it in, absolutely. And everyone can say like, oh, if I went to be a SEAL, I would never quit. It's very easy saying that from the couch or from when you're not there.
Exactly.
But in the moment, there's no, it's going to obviously highlight if you're going to, what your intentions really are type thing. And that's why day one, actually the night before Buds actually started, they took our entire class and they lined us up on the beach and made us do a height line. And again, we had 242 guys, and they said, everyone look to your left, and everyone's heads turns to the left. And I'm looking down the line, and it seemed like everyone was bigger than me. Bigger arms, bigger everything, like muscles. These guys are huge. Guys are whispering, and do you know who that guy is? He played for like the Bengals, or that guy's a bodybuilder. That guy is a triathlon, one of those triathlons or Ironmans. And then to say, everyone look to your right, and same thing. I'm like, oh my God, I'm like the smallest guy here. I'm this big. I'm 18 years old. I was like, and instructors say, the guy left and right of you will not be here on graduation day. And I'm looking at him like, oh, damn, what are my odds here?
Right.
And, but I mean, going into it, and then it wasn't, first week, and those two guys to the left and right of me had both quit at that point. And then the class is smaller, and then now a lot of people quit type thing. And then it's those guys that those same guys that guys are talking about, like when they're whispering, like, that guy that played for professional football, that guy's a professional athlete. You hear down the line, like, yeah, did you hear they quit a couple hours ago? Like, wait, they quit? And I'm still here, and I'm not even that I'm not thinking of quitting, but I was like, I've been too busy even to do it all. And it gives you a little more push, like, oh, I think I do have a shot here, and it starts building your confidence type thing like that. And then when we graduated, we had 18 original guys in our class that graduated. And when we graduated, I wouldn't have picked probably any of those 18 guys, on day one to be like, he's going to make it. He's going to make it. It's a mixed match type thing. It's just the way it goes.
So, I mean, and I've read, that the, failure rate or whatever you want to call it's pretty high. So I can't do the math that fast in my head, but 18 out of 242 is like what, less than 10%?
Oh yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, they say the average, drop rate is a little over 80% of the class will not make it type thing. They call them summer classes and winter classes. It's just the time of year your class goes through. And winter classes obviously are a little bit colder, but it's San Diego, so the outside temperature really doesn't change too much. And same thing with the water. The ocean water stays right around 54 degrees year round. But regardless, the winter classes historically have a higher drop rate than the summer classes. But there's really no controlling that. I think some guys try to time it like, well, if I go into boot camp at this time and it's this many weeks, I'll show up at this time, I'll be a summer class. And, I don't think there's no, foolproof way to ensure that that's going to happen, because there's just, they're in the military. All of a sudden this extended, or you're going to get pushed 2 months a year or something like that. Right. If you're saying like, I don't think I can make it in a winter class, but I think I'm good for a summer class, you're already going down the wrong path.
Right. So that was part of what I wanted to ask you, because I know, or I think I know, so you're at Buds and you have 242 people that are there. If you decide to quit, you get a ring out, right? You got to ring the bell 3 times.
Right. Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, you do. I mean, you ultimately do, but at any part of the training, sometimes, the real bell they have is they call it in the grinder, and it's just basically like the Buds is a compound. Consider it like a square compound. And in the middle is just like a big parking lot, but that's where you do all your workouts. They're not even called workouts. It's just beat sessions where it's push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, everything like that. They just go on and on. And all the instructors can see from 4 sides, and there hanging is the bell. But obviously, during training, you're running miles and miles down the beach, you're swimming 2 miles out in the ocean, so the bell's not always there. So you can just raise your hand at any time and say, I quit. They'll put you in the truck, they'll bring you back to start processing out, and you got to ring the bell, take your helmet off, because you wear a helmet in BUD/S. It's just to signify what phase of the training you're in, and then you put your helmet down. So that line of helmets grows, and you've probably seen pictures of it even in different movies and whatnot. And day one there's going to be like 5 to 10 helmets there, but months later it's like, and when you see that as a student, it's impressive if you're still there, if you haven't quit, because you'll be like, wow, because it really signifies how many guys have possibly quit. I don't remember barely anyone of the original class, from the 242 guys. Like, I don't know their names, I don't know their stories, that kind of stuff. And if there wasn't something like that, like the helmets to signify how many people have quit, it'd be months in, and I probably wouldn't even notice, like, oh, the class is smaller or something like that. Like, I couldn't tell how many guys have quit at that point. But when you see all the helmets lined up, you're like, wow.
Hi, everyone. I just want to take a quick break from the podcast to let you know about some exciting news that I thought you'd be interested in. When we talk about lean, we talk a lot about value add. Now, that translates into adding value to your workforce, your products and services, and to your customers. We here at New England Lean are no different. We're continuously striving to deliver more value to our clients each and every day. Over the years, we've grown from being focused solely on lean training and consulting to also offering Six Sigma belt certifications, lean certification, and quality management system assistance. In fact, we just helped a Massachusetts manufacturer get ISO 9001 and ISO 13485 certified, and both of those were done with no findings. The real reason for the interruption, though, is that I wanted to let you know about the various funding opportunities that may be available to you here in New England. Regardless of which of the 6 states you're in, New England Lean Consulting is approved and/or certified to provide under those programs, from the Workforce Training Fund in Massachusetts to the Eversource-funded Prime program here in Connecticut, the Governor's Workforce Board in Rhode Island to the Maine at Work initiative. And I don't know of another consulting firm that can say that. My team and I work very hard to ensure that we stay on top of all these different programs so that we can give you the best opportunity to take advantage of incentives that you might not even have ever heard of before. So hit us up online at newenglandlean.com and look for our funding opportunities page for more information.
I've heard a story, and I don't know if you've heard this or if you can even know if it's true or not. But and I admittedly I don't remember where. I've tried to Google it and find it again, and I can't. So I might have just dreamt it. But I've heard that if you're in BUD/S and you decide to quit, that the instructors sometimes will try to convince you to stay. But I've heard that it's 100% of the time. So if I'm in there and I decide, hey, I want to quit, and you say, Critchley, listen, you can do this, stay. And I say, all right, I'll stay. 100% of the time, I will eventually quit.
Yes.
Is that a true story?
That's very true. Yeah, I mean, I know exactly what you're talking about because I've seen it firsthand so many times. But, BUD/S is designed to break you down physically, mentally. And if you can still hold on, then you'll graduate type thing. But the second there's a crack in the foundation, there's no time to repair it, and I didn't quit, obviously, but I've heard a lot of stories from guys that have. There's actually just a story I was just reading the other day that just recently a kid this year quit BUD/S. He was a real like star athlete for like professional or college lacrosse, and he, his whole family knew he was going to do it. It was this big thing, and he quit, and instantly he regretted it. It's like, you want to take it back and you can't. If you say I quit, you ring the bell. There's no like going back to your room, taking a quick nap, having a hot shower, and saying, you know what, I think I can do it, and walk back in. Once you quit, you quit. And he unfortunately went to a local hotel in San Diego and jumped off. And that's where the story's kind of going. But it's that immediate regret. You know, I don't think anyone, I have to say I think, because I definitely don't know, but I have to think that there's no one out there that quits and was like, thank God I quit. Like now it's just like life is going to be good. Because getting to buds and becoming a SEAL, it's a life goal for these people. You know, it's everything. You need 100% focus. It's not like, you know, I want to be a SEAL or I want to be an astronaut or maybe I'll be a fireman. Like
Right.
You have to focus that, and that has to be everything for you. And there's no other distractions. There's no other options. It's just, I'm 100% focused on that. And for a lot of people, you know, for me, it was, you know, better part of almost 10 years, I'd say. And a lot of guys that I was in Buds, you know, have this very similar stories. There wasn't anyone that, you know, at Buds, I was like, I woke up last Friday and said, I want to be a SEAL. Now I'm here. That's not how it works. Mm-hmm. And then when that's your life and that's where your goals are, and then it's all second, you know, it's gone in a second. You're in a very weak spot. You're, you know, it's 2 a.m., middle of the night or something like that. You're cold. And you say, I quit. And then they say, okay, you're out. And you're like, wait a minute, what did I just, then the reality hits. Like, what did I just do? Mm-hmm. You know, everything I've worked for years and years and years is now instantly gone. It's a crushing blow for these guys, and I get it. But it is what, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be part of the whole process, right? Because if you're going to quit, then, you know, you don't want to be right. And
well, that's exactly
who knows
it.
where on the globe.
It's not, I mean, Buds isn't out there to, you know, the intentions of Buds are not to just like, we want to destroy people or we want to hurt people or we want to, you know, just whittle people down. That's not the intentions by any means. It's the job when you become a SEAL is going to be incredibly grueling. You know, people were telling me, you know, not people, the instructors were saying like Buds is easy in comparison to actually becoming a SEAL. Things you're going to have to do are way harder. And I remember just being like, that's one of those, they got to be just saying that. That's not true. And then, you know, I was in the SEAL teams for 10 years, you know, actually being a SEAL type thing. And now I can say like, yeah, that, you know, Buds really wasn't much in comparison, but that's what Buds is for, is to, you know, see who's going to be able to gut it out. Because when you're, you know, downrange with these guys in SEALs, you're going to be doing some of the hardest missions that, you know, America can ask of anyone. And if you have a guy there that was like, you know, oh, you're probably going to quit, or I remember you in Buds, you quit type thing, you know, it's going to come out too. So that's why they don't let people go back in just because they say, oh, I feel better now, or now I want to come back.
Right. Yeah. And, you know, I mean, like you said, I run your obstacle course race, and there's a lot of SEAL style, like the Dirty Name was one of those. So for folks who don't know, I'll give a shot, but at explaining. So essentially what it is 3 horizontal telephone poles, and they're at 3 different heights. And I think the third one is what, like 8-10 feet in the air?
About 10.
Okay. But the kicker is from 1 to 2 to 3, it's like just far enough that you can't step over. You have to jump and land correctly, like on your midsection, grab it, and then that. And I'll tell you, it was when I first ran Bonefrog, it was, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, and it was at Berkshire East, which is the hometown one.
Right. And
I must have, I mean, getting up on the first one's not all that bad because you just kind of walk up to it, but psychologically to jump, and I've never been like a super athlete. I give myself an average, but I don't know how long I stood there trying to get up the courage, the guts, whatever, you know, psychologically, because I know it's like, whatever, 5 feet away. So I'm like, I know physically I can make this jump, but it's that part of it where it's just like, you know.
Well, I absolutely love that obstacle. I have a backstory with it too, where when I showed up to Buds, when you actually show up to buds, you go through about 4 weeks of, they call it in-doc, or they call it even fourth phase, but it's basically you start training then before you even start buds, and it's conditioning phase. So you're not actually in buds, but you're at buds, and you're with your group of guys that are starting. And say you have a start date. Let's just say you have a start date, March 1st, but you show up February 1st.
Okay.
You start your conditioning phase, and day one you go out, and the whole class, they do like 5 slow push-ups, and you go for a nice slow run for like a mile. But at that point, everyone's so advanced. I mean, these guys have been training. They could do, far beyond that. But they show you the obstacle course and stuff. And the whole point of that conditioning phase, they started it, I think, in the 90s or so. But what they were finding out is that so many guys were showing up to buds, and they're not quitting, but their bodies are breaking. They're getting stress fractures in their legs, or, sprained wrists and stuff like that, like severely sprained type stuff and whatnot. And they were training to become a SEAL, but there's, how do you train to become a SEAL? It's just, you got to be fit. So everyone had these different training regimens type thing, and it might not get you ready. So when they're seeing, like, there's so many guys not making it, not because they wouldn't be good SEALs or they couldn't do it mentally, or they were going to quit. It's their body's breaking. So they added in this fourth phase, this conditioning phase, before you actually start buds. And it's 100% designed to say, like, okay, we've saved for success now. On day one of buds, you're either going to quit, during buds, you're going to quit, and it's not 100% foolproof that your body's not going to break, but that's why they added that in. And during that phase, you get to try the obstacles and stuff like that. It's not for time. You're kind of just learning the ropes on this kind of stuff. So anyways, first day we went to the obstacle course. It was kind of like a free for all. It was like, kids going to a gym or to a course like this. So you could just play on the obstacles. And I started out, I'm running by myself, kind of jogging. I'm doing the obstacles, and everything's fine. I'm cruising through them, and I'm like, I'm gonna fly through buds. This is gonna be great.
Yeah.
Then I got to dirty name, and there's no one standing there like, the way you do this is this, and there's no one there, and there's other kids kind of running by and whatnot. And I'm like, how the heck do you do this thing? Mm-hmm. And just like you said, it's 3 logs laying. First one's laying basically on the ground. So all you have to do is step on it, and then the next log is 5 feet forward and about 5 feet in the air. And you can reach out and touch it if you lean forward, but you can't stand there like, vertical and just touch it.
Right.
So if you're already leaning, you're just like, uh-oh. But everyone can make it to that first log because it's only 5 feet off the ground. And then once you're on that next log, then you have to stand up on that and balance. And then the next one is exactly the same distance, 5 feet in front of you and 5 feet up. So there's no difference. But mentally, that's what kills everyone. Mm-hmm. And it's really not a very physical obstacle. It's like it takes a little bit of a hop, and it's more of a technique, if anything.
Yeah.
But what kills everyone on the obstacle is mentally in their heads are like, I can't do that. Now it's too high, or you make it up in your head like it's too far away. Like, no, it's exactly as high or as far as the last one that everyone can do. Mm-hmm. And I probably sat there I wouldn't say sat there, but I probably tried that obstacle for the better part of an hour. And my arms were destroyed because every time you roll on the log, it kind of gives you an abrasion on the forearms. You get on the legs and everything. And I was, catching the log in my chest as I was jumping to it, and it was knocking the wind out of me, things like that. And
I've done that too.
Right. And I'm standing there, drenched in sweat. My arms are like bleeding. My chest is killing me. And I'm like, I don't know how you do it. And then someone came by and said, like, you got to break it down for yourself. Like, it's not a hard obstacle. It's just, you got to really go for that leap of faith at the end. And that's the biggest thing, is that you get to that second log and you have to jump, and you have to jump not to the log. You have to envision yourself jumping over the log. You're like, well, if I jump over the log, I'm going to kill myself. And it's like, yeah, but that's what it takes. Like, you have to envision that. And if you do, and you jump over it, you're not going to clear the log. You're going to catch it like you're supposed to, and in the stomach, roll over and make it. And when you finally do that, you're like, oh my God, like it's like almost like a life-changing thing. Like, you're in your head, you're like, wow. but that's why I had that obstacle on our course, because it's like, it's really not incredibly physical. It's more of a mental obstacle than anything else. So.
And that's why, I mean, honestly, that's why I love yours, you know, because as far as obstacle course races go, I mean, I've run them for a decade now. I probably do 4 or 5 a year. And we've seen them come and go, right? I mean, there's a bunch that have gone out of business now, but that's where I think it sets you know, Bonefrog apart, because nobody else has stuff like that. And the simple fact that you really were a SEAL, like there used to be, I think I can say Battle Frog, right? But I don't think they're around anymore, right?
No. And they weren't owned by SEALs either.
Yeah, wasn't it like inspired by or something?
Correct. And that's a very big play on words. Like, you know, the owner wasn't a SEAL. And, you know, I didn't work for that company. I don't know it firsthand, but I know guys that did, and I spoke with them. And, you know, it was a guy with a lot of money. They had good intentions and everything, but he was hiring SEALs to do this. And that's where the whole thing was like Battle Frog. For us, obviously, we're 100% SEAL owned type stuff, but we're not trying to really mimic the other races out there. We don't want to just be like, you're an obstacle course, we're an obstacle course. Like, we're the same thing. Just do ours because you can, you know, meet a SEAL or something like that. The big difference for us is more in the course and the obstacles we're putting on when we're building. And there, you know, some obstacles are essentially exact replicas of the obstacles we trained on, you know, to be SEALs in BUDS, essentially, like the dirty name we just talked about. And then other obstacles are, you know, a variation of that, like a rope climb. It might not look exactly like the rope climb in BUDS, but a rope climb type thing. Same thing for the walls. And anyways, the more of the obstacles we have are very similar to the exact obstacles or same obstacles we trained on. And one of the kind of sayings we have for Bonefrog is that, you know, if we didn't do this in the SEAL teams or in training, then we're not going to have it on our course. So, you know, you're not going to come to Bonefrog and there's going to be like a slip and slide type thing. Back in the early days, I think we tried some stuff. I remember there was one race at Birch East one year, I think it was like 2014, that we did try a slip and slide, and we kind of caught ourselves after. We're like, wait a minute, we're going against what we said we weren't going to do, and we, you know, didn't have to after that. But, you know, a lot of these companies out there, they were doing like those half walls. I think a lot of companies actually still do, but Tough Mudder, I think, almost kind of coined it, where they had that big wall. I know Savage Race has one. And anyways, same things like that. Like, everyone thinks those things are cool and everyone wants to try them and everything. And I get that. I mean, hell, I want to try it too. I've never done one, but it looks cool and looks like fun. But if I'm going to do it, I'll go to, you know, a Tough Mudder to do it type thing. I'm not going to say that was cool, so I'm going to put on our course. Otherwise, it's the same. I mean, there's no difference. You might as well. Correct. And we're trying to be authentic like that and different. And I think there's space for a lot of different races out there in OCR. But if they're all identical, then it's really going to water down the flavor.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's part of the whole deal is, you know, and I'll speak from my experience that, you know, I'll tell you my Bonefrog story is, so I run Rugged Maniac, and like you and I were chatting, like I kind of know the owners there. I have, you know, some connections and, you know, I've talked to them a lot, and I've run laps in Southwick, which isn't far from either one of us, but you know, and I love that course, but so I'm like, all right, well, and that's a 5K, right? So it's just over 3 miles. So a buddy of mine had run Bonefrog, I forget what year, it was probably 2013 or 14. And he's like, hey, and we have a team, and it's just friends, you know, we don't, whatever. So anyways, we're like, let's do Bonefrog. So we go, and I'm like, all right. And we ran the challenge, which back then was the, you know, 9 wink miles when it was actually like 12. Thank you, by the way, for that. So I'm like, all right, well, it's 9 miles. It's basically 3 times a Rugged Maniac. And I do that in like 35-ish minutes. I'm like, all right, well, we'll be done with this in a couple of hours. Well, 6 hours later, you know, and my wife and kids had come up because they want, you know, because you guys have Black Ops, which is the final obstacle, right? Which is the inverted monkey bars with a giant American flag. It's like the best photo op in the whole wide world. So I'm like, you guys got to be there when I cross. So they were hanging out for like 2 hours. Like, I think they were considering coming to find you because I think they were afraid I was on the mountain somewhere under,
Right.
And I remember, so my wife tells the story. So we all walk out of like the woods to come down to Black Ops. And she's like, I've never seen you look that way. Cause we had no Cliff Bar. We had nothing, no nutrition with us, not wearing a Camelback.
Right.
And I'm just like white. But to your point, you get down to the end, and this is, you have a retired or a former Navy SEAL at the end waiting to put a medal around your neck. It's like, you know what? You gotta, for lack of a better term, right? You gotta toughen up and you gotta get it done. So we did. I found the energy somewhere, cross Black Ops, but I really felt like, hey, I've accomplished something. And again, I'm not trying to compare it to Buds because there's no comparison.
No.
But for me, as a middle-aged guy, it's like I train and I do stuff and I actually accomplished something. It's like, because there was a wall. This is back when you guys up at the top of the mountain, there was a water reservoir, and you had 3 successive walls, and they were a little bit higher. Yep. So I think it was over the first one, under the second one, over the third one.
Right.
So I jumped over the third one, and when I landed, I just crumpled because both quads, my calves were all cramping up. And I'm like, I legit was like, I don't think I can do this. But flash forward, and your story, as you were telling it, I was kind of thinking, it's like, you're right. Had I quit, I would regret it to this day because like you said, it's like, anybody can do this for 6 hours. You just got to suck it up, right? The only easy day was yesterday. So you just suck it up and you just do it and you get it done. I'll tell you, for many days after that, walking was an issue. but again, it's like, I got the medal, right? I actually did, and I actually accomplished something.
Well, thank you for that story, but that's exactly what we're trying to accomplish. We have the mindset that the bigger the accomplishment, the bigger the reward. So, if our race is very easy, and you kind of cross the finish line, you'd be like, well, that was fun, but what am I going to do next? Like, what's going to be harder type thing. But if the race is incredibly grueling, it's going to stick with you. And when you cross that finish line, it is very emotional for people because it's like, that was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. We hear that over and over. But when they cross the finish line, it's like, I can't believe I did that. You looking back, like all the things I just did along that route. And like I said, anyone can do a day of Buds. It's kind of almost the same. Like, anyone can do a mile of Bonefrog, or anyone can do, one of the obstacles, probably our hardest obstacle. You walk up and just do that obstacle. Anyone can do that for better lack of term. But it's doing it all, and all those miles and all the obstacles and how grueling it is. And Berkshire East is, it's an obstacle in itself. It's a ski mountain. So, even if we removed the obstacles, it would still be a grueling run regardless. So yeah, that's what we're going for. You cross that finish line, you have that sense of accomplishment, and it sticks with you. And if people don't ever do it again, they have that memory. But I've done a lot of runs out there, not in the military, but like go to like just a 5K that a town puts on or something like that. And you're right. 5K is over in less than 30 minutes, and there's no real training for it. You don't have like months of like, I was doing this to train and this. And I had to plan what I was going to do for snacks or food or replenishment and water. You just literally show up, get out with your tennis shoes, go run, and then you're like, all right, what else are we going to do for today? Want to go to this restaurant? You want to go to beer? You want to go to see a movie? Yeah. You don't even think about it. And if you're like, someone tells you 10 years later, like, remember that run we did? You're probably like, kinda. Yeah. Bonefrog's different. Yeah, that's going to stick with you, that memory. And that's exactly what we're trying to create.
So that kind of segues into part of what I wanted to chat with you about too is, so I got to believe that you can't make it through Buds without teammates, right? Because Bonefrog is very, like, I want to say you have a wall that's like 10 or 12 feet high, and it's flat.
Yep.
There's no, a lot of other races, it's like there's toe holds or something that you can, it's like a lat,
Mhm.
in Bonefrog, it's not, it's flat and that's it. Now, more athletic guys can run and, kind of put their foot and use their momentum to get a little up
Right.
and then grab and pull up over. I will say most of the people I see can't do that. So like when we run, we all, there's, I don't know, between 4 and 7 of us, depending on if anybody's injured beforehand. But how we get over that one is, the tallest guy, who happens to be a chief in a fire department, gives us a hand cradle and we step on that and get up over. And then one of us will hang like, up over the wall and use our hands, and he can kind of grab them. Right.
Yep.
So is that part of the deal with buds? Is that what instructors are looking for, that you guys at some point start to help each other out versus kind of competing with each other?
Yes. Two parts of that, two answers to that is, during the OPSO course at Buds, there is no helping, but only 2 guys start together. Okay. So the way the OPSO course run, or they call it the O course at Buds, is there's essentially 2 lanes, and 2 guys start shoulder to shoulder, and they say 3, 2, 1, go. And you're really not racing; you're racing against time. You only have like 5, or I think you start off with like 12 minutes or something like that to complete the O course. But there's different phases of Buds. There's really 3 phases, but then they have like pre-Hell Week and post-Hell Week and all these different times. So like when you start off your first O course, don't quote me on this, but I just want to say, let's just call it 12 minutes. And it's like by the end of first phase, you have to be at a sub 10. Mm-hmm. And then after, Hell Week or some of that, you have to be at a sub 8. And anyways, so you're really going against that time. And the other person they're running with is to kind of give you a little bit of a pace. Like if they're way ahead of me and I'm way back here, I'm not going to make it. I got to catch up. But there's no like, oh, you beat him, so good for you. It's just going to get time. But there's no helping anyone. And there's no one really there to help you either. Okay. So during the O course, it's completely on your own. But as far as Buds goes, the whole spectrum of it, it is building teamwork, incredibly, building with these guys, but it keeps changing. Meaning, you've probably seen like the videos or whatnot where you run with a boat, inflatable boat on your head. And it's called a boat crew. And there's 7 guys to a boat crew. And it takes all 7 guys to hold that boat up. One guy ducks out and you literally feel like your neck's going to break. And those same 7 guys are going to be when you do log PT, where you get on a real big heavy log and it takes all 7 guys. And they've designed this training. It's genius how they've done it, but it's like if one guy is not giving 100%, all the other guys are going to feel it 100% type thing. So it takes all that. And they make these boat crews and they start building. That's like the first thing that you do in Buds about almost like teamwork is those, you get formed into a boat crew. And the way they do the boat crew is, I think I told you that we do that height line day mm-hmm. 1, and they literally start at one end and say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You're boat crew 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Boat crew 2. And you're depending on these guys to do their part. But what happens is, halfway through day 1 of Buds, probably like 3 or 4 of your boat crew have already quit. And it keeps on regenerating. So then it's like, you start in the morning and you look around like, okay, this is my boat crew. Hey, I'm Brian. Nice to meet you. Something like that. And then by the afternoon, you're like, hey, who are you guys? Like, it's all new faces. Yeah. And then the next day it keeps regenerating. So, it takes a long time in Buds, or it feels like a long time to get down to a crew like, hey, you were here yesterday in my boat crew and you're here again today. And hey, you're here, you've been here all week type thing. It's like, you're probably going to stick around type thing. But it takes a long time to filter those guys out. And then when you get down to a manageable size class and the guys that are gutting it out, then you start building those bonds with them, and you're hanging out with them after hours, at the weekends and stuff like that, and it's that camaraderie. And then when you come in the morning and you're going to have this incredibly hard day or hell week, you're just like, I don't want to let these guys down, and it pushes you a little bit further, Mm-hmm. But it also has it can have the other end of the spectrum where, say, like you have a best friend in buds. You meet this kid, and it's like, yeah, this is my ride or die. He's gonna make, he's gonna help me make it through. I'll make him make it through. Then he quits.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh my God,
yeah.
what am I gonna do now? I can't do it by myself, type thing. And you got to be cautious of that. Like, ultimately, you got to know that you can do it, type thing. And it's okay to help other guys through and have guys help you, but you got to just know in your heart that you could continue on too alone if you absolutely had to, because you get too tied to someone, you get too dependent.
Hi everyone, it's Paul. Before I let you go, I just want to say thanks for listening. I hope you found the podcast to be both entertaining and educational, as that's really what our goal is with it. If you did like it, please give us a review and a subscribe. The more folks who do this, the more the algorithms like us, so the more people will be able to find us. I also want to give special shout outs to Emma Critchley for her video and audio editing abilities, which quite frankly are way beyond mine, as well as Jeremy Grant and the team at the Timber Cross for their creative genius. I appreciate you all. I invite you to connect with us as well. We're all over social media, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, so we should be pretty easy to find. We share a lot of content that is much like what we talk about on the podcast, so it may be of interest to give us a follow. You can also find us online at newenglandlean.com. That's our website, and it outlines all the services we provide, things we do, customer testimonials, case studies, white papers, as well as being our main conduit for story sharing about all things that are lean, quality, and culture change focused. So check us out there as well. Finally, if you have any thoughts about the podcast, things you'd like us to discuss, things you'd like us to change, or if you want to be a guest or know somebody who would be, please email us at podcast@newenglandlean.com. We're always trying to improve and welcome any feedback. Thanks again for listening. Until next time, make it a wonderful week.